So I've consulted the Board Game Geek forums to try to figure out a little bit more about the solo assistant and off-map behavior. The American units here are not where they have not come in yet. It's their formations activation. But before that, I have to say I forgot that the first 3 turns of this scenario are night turns, which adds a +1 to hit modifier to units that are night fire capable, up to a maximum of 6. So I went back through the log, and of all of the firing that happened previously, there was only one instance where there should have been an unsaved hit scored by an American unit, and that was the very first movement by the East Germans. So this unit had been reduced and disrupted, is now only disrupted, and these units here, which had been shot up by the Abrams and the Dragon, are all good order now. There were a couple of hits, there were a couple of 6s rolled, but also the Dragon would not have fired in that case. It did not have improved night fighting, so that doesn't need to reload. Okay, those are mistakes that I typically and often make in these games. So my understanding about the solo assistant and off-map units is as follows: that if all of the units are off-map, they enter the map utilizing red, yellow, or blue priorities. So point-blank range, or effective range, or up to long range. So point-blank units, the first priority would be to fire. The second would be to make a low-risk move. A low-risk move is defined as moving in a way that you are out of the LOS of any enemy units. Now, I assume that as a player, I decide where the Americans come in and what their reinforcements come in and what they're trying to do, and that once I determine that, then we determine, is it are they near the map or not? And it is also possible that the solo assistant could be saying you have to move into an assault, but there's not any real way for that to happen. So what I am thinking needs to happen here is that the closest thing to a low-risk move that I can think of, since these units are all ops complete, there can't be any fire from them. If an American unit ends up in this hex here, in this cultivated hex, these units have line of sight, but none of these units do. They're blocked by this town. If the Americans wind up in this city hex and retake this objective, then none of these units have line of sight, nor do these or these. These units do have line of sight, and they have a point-blank shot, which is not good, but the Americans do have some protection by being in the city. The other thing that is always possible, as I said, these Bradleys are pretty hardcore. They can deal some damage. So the Bradleys could load up American infantry and move them onto the map and then unload them, or they could let the infantry walk onto the map, and then they could do a move and fire. And I just don't know which is best, but I think that anything I do with these Bradleys in this configuration, I either have to get them all up here so they're completely out of line of sight and force the East Germans to try to react. And if I do that, then we can come and try to make an assault later. The flip side is, if the East Germans end up activating these units and clear the ops complete, then they'll be coming up over the top and getting fired at point-blank range by pretty effective tanks into their thin skin, which doesn't sound good. So I'm in a bit of a quandary, and so I'm just going to do, I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm sorry, I'm not going to load that infantry unit. So I'm going to start with, I'm just moving these units out of the way. They're not going anywhere. I'm going to start here with this infantry unit, and if only it was one hex closer, right? That's one hex to move, then this will be 2, and this will be 3. Or I could go 1, 2, 3. That doesn't make any sense. So I am going to, oh, sorry, I got to pause again. I got to take a phone call. All right, sorry. So what the Americans are going to do is when you come in from off map, everybody's assumed to be in command. So what they're going to do is these units, there's no fire that they have to face. So they're going to come in 1, 2, 3, and they're just going to, and then 4, 1, 2, 3, whatever. They're going to stop right there. That's the anti-aircraft vehicle and the self-propelled mortar. They don't have anything to do right here, right now. Now this is a night turn, so that impacts my thinking here. So these Bradleys are stacked and loaded. They're coming in here 1, 2. I'm sorry, that's not where they're coming in. Yeah, no, they're coming in here 1, 2, 3. Now APCs can move half of their movement and unload infantry into the adjacent hex, and so they're going to unload the infantry right into that hex there, and the headquarters is going to go with the infantry. So the infantry is at some risk here from these tanks, and the headquarters is too, but they also have the ability to load up some shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons with good shots or make an assault. So I think that there's at least a 50-50 chance that the Americans will act before the East Germans do. And so that's what I'm going to do there with those units. And these units here are all marked ops complete also. They have done their work. Yeah, see, this is a little tiny fiddly piece with the module here, having to clear the headquarters off before you can right-click for ops complete, but it's not a big deal. Now, coming in down here, these units, the infantry are not loaded. They're coming in 1 to this hex, 2, 3. Again, very exposed, very high risk, but that's what I'm going to do with them. And now 1, 2, 3. The Brad is going to come in here, and now it's moved half its movement points. And if you remember moving and firing, the Bradley has green green armor-piercing firepower, but it also has orange high rate of fire, high explosive firepower, and it can use that attack as well, and that has a range of 4. So both of those are point-blank shots. And if we look at the card here, with green firepower, it's going to lose 2 firepower dice, but with orange AP or HE, it has no effect moving 3 hexes and getting to shoot. So they're going to use the orange high explosive firepower. It's a night turn, and this is 1 hex, so that adds +1 to their 2 hit, so that makes it a 3 needing 6, but it's also a point blank shot, which reduces it, so now they are taking 3 shots needing 5. And they're probably in big trouble after this, but I'm just going to be aggressive. So they're rolling 3 dice, needing 5s to hit. And they whiff, and that, yeah, it makes me wish I'd changed my mind. But it's too late. So that's what the American reinforcements have done. Let's see who acts next. C1 of the 8th. They are way over here. They're the ones that I was saying earlier. Could potentially help out by moving up here, but I think right now the Americans are in good shape over here. I don't think they need to do any moving. There are no units in their line of sight and range to trigger a solo assistant check. So we're going to pull the next card, and it is the air support for the East Germans, their air support plane, and that is pretty good news for them. They've got a couple of things they can do that with. First, I want to check what the cards that are left are. So the East Germans have one formation card left in the deck. So it's pretty unlikely they're going to pull their card before the Americans act. So in terms of thinking about where the threats are, it seems that the most significant threats are these American units up here, and where can I best use the air support to try to modify that. And as is my tendency, I'm going to stop the video here and think on that a little bit before I decide what to do.